Today's video is going to be a cozy one. Last week, I basically shared my goals and intentions for 2026. You know, my methodology for turning a dream into a goal into a plan. So I'm going to leave that linked up here for you in case you're curious and you want to jump back and do that. But this week, I want to talk about how. These are the different things that are going to be part of my creative toolkit for 2026. Some of them are going to be really self-explanatory. Others are just going to be just a bit of encouragement. But we're not talking about some aesthetic toolkit here. We're talking about the things that I'm actually going to rely on when things get hard, you know, when motivation dips, when energy just fluctuates, because my energy fluctuates. I live with chronic illnesses and it's basically unpredictable, but I still want to be creative throughout each day. So these are the things that I use when life just happens. But before I show you any of those tools, I want to talk about how I think about a creative toolkit in the first place. For me, a toolkit isn't about optimizing and doing more, you know, that infinite hustle. It's about support. It's about finding the right things that'll help you be the best version of yourself, as cliche as that sounds. Every tool I'm going to share today exists to help reduce friction, reduce pressure, or just help me show up and achieve the things I want to achieve, even on days when creativity feels heavy. And the most important rule is that my toolkit is allowed to change as I change. We are all constantly changing. I mean, that's part of being alive. So my creative toolkit and your creative toolkit should just support your goals and not guilt you into them. It should fluctuate as you keep evolving. So if you're building a creative toolkit for your year, I hope this video gives you permission and ideas and maybe a few I want that too kind of moments along the way. The first thing that I include in my toolkit are things related to energy management, because creativity doesn't just start at this desk, you know, I'm sitting here, this is my creative space, but it starts from your body. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that my toolkit and the things I do and use should adapt to my energy levels, not the other way around. So on low energy days, my toolkit might look like reduced stimulation, writing in comfy pajamas, my hot water bottle, because I've just been addicted to this for years. Anyway, it includes taking more breaks. It includes shorter focus sessions. So when I'm using my Pomodoro timer, usually it's the Forest app, I will change the duration of the focus session to something shorter and that feels more achievable based on my energy that day. And honestly, just giving myself permission to do less, because these days aren't failures. They're just part of sustainable creativity. But then on high energy days, my toolkit shifts. It might look like writing in cafes, being out and about, just writing the momentum and batching things, following that spark and just keeping going. Ignoring your energy levels doesn't really make you more productive. It leads to burnout for longer. So have a toolkit that changes with you. I think I've said that enough for now. The next part of my toolkit are the tools I actually use for writing. These things are simple. I keep it intentionally super simple because complexity is just the fastest way to stop writing for me. It gets me to feel overwhelmed, and it might make you feel overwhelmed too. My main tools for writing are my Scrivener project, my notebook for the specific project. I have a different one for each project where I jot down notes and thoughts and ideas, especially when I feel like brainstorming in physical format. And then we've got my phone, especially my notes app, because I write on the go thoughts in the notes app. And then the internet for research rabbit holes that may take longer than they should. And that's it. I don't use 10 different apps to write my book. I just need places where ideas can land quickly and safely. Then there are the things that are nice to have, you know, things that make getting started with creating a little bit easier. We've got a candle, we've got a warm drink, you know, we've got a playlist on days when I'm not feeling overstimulated, or noise canceling headphones or earplugs on days when I am. And usually I choose a pen that I just keep jumping back to during a project. Are these required? Absolutely not. Do they help my brain go, ooh, yeah, it's time to create right now? Yeah, they do. So lean on them too. And even though my desk is my home base, I'll write anywhere. You know, cafes, the living room, on travel days, I'll write on planes. And I try not to focus so much on creating the perfect environment, but rather in believing that every little bit helps. Every word you write helps move you closer to finishing that manuscript. Next, we've got the tools that help me keep structure and be accountable. These are the tools that turn creativity into something real, something tangible. My biggest structure tool is my calendar. Simple as that. I time block my writing sessions into my calendar because writing doesn't happen when I just feel like it. It happens when I protect space for it. I treat it like an appointment because if it's optional, it just gets eaten up by everything else. One big shift for me was realizing that structure doesn't kill creativity, but rather it protects it. Doing the Brandon Sanderson creative writing routine helped me realize how much more productive I am when I'm blocking time for it. I'm gonna link that here in case you haven't watched that. But I also use Notion. I use Notion mainly for my content creation for the Uncharted Studio. I realized that when I tried to use Notion for my writing, I made it way too complicated for the project. So I stopped using it for that entirely. And that was a relief because the best system, the best tools you lean on are the ones that you actually return to. If a tool looks great, but it makes you avoid your work, it is not helping you at all. So by adding this structure, my goals turn into plans and plans turn into pages. Another huge part of my toolkit for 2026 is growth. I treat learning as both a goal and a tool. That's why I've scheduled my daily growth hour, time that's dedicated purely to learning, to exploring, and to expanding my creativity. Not everyone needs a growth hour. You could do a growth hour every week. You could do mini growth sessions if that's what works for you. But for me, I like first thing in the morning after brushing my teeth and doing all that, just sitting down and helping my brain get up to where I want to be by learning. Some of my growth tools that I'm leaning into this year include YouTube. They include Skillshare and Masterclass, podcasts like Writing Excuses and No Right Way, articles, Reddit, and social content, and a lot of craft books that I'm going to be reading in 2026. Also, since I mentioned YouTube, I wanted to shout out to a few creators who I genuinely love learning from. There's Nissa Only Reads, who talks about Bookstagram and ways to turn Bookstagram into a side hustle or ways to just create content. And I find her really inspiring, really clear, really thorough. And I just love looking at her Instagram posts. And also she's just started posting on YouTube. I highly encourage you to check that out. Next, there's Abby Emmons, who is just great for structure, for character development, and getting into the nitty-gritty tools of writing. Then we've got Brielle Wrights, Kate Kavanaugh, and Christiane Jones, who just, their content inspires me and makes me want to sit down and create. So content from these creators is definitely part of my growth plan for 2026, and they're ones I'm using currently and have been for quite a while. Growth hour for me is honoring my future self and giving myself permission to be a beginner, to be an amateur, to love what I'm doing again and again and again. So I'd love to know, who do you love watching? Whose content do you engage with and find most helpful? And what are your favorite craft books? Because I'll definitely add them to my plan moving forward and to my TBR pile for craft books. Finally, there are the tools that support everything else. These are the rituals that keep me creating every day. We've got my growth hour, like I just mentioned. We've got walks, we've got nourishing food and movement, and my bedtime routine, which I try stick to. Then we've got, candles and playlists, and reading almost every day. I read almost every day because some days, like right now, I haven't really read anything for the last 2 days because I'm still processing Alchemized. And that's fine. That's fine. I'm feeling so inspired. These things aren't extras. They're not rewards. They're key parts of how I sustain my creativity. Creativity doesn't just happen at a desk. It happens everywhere else, especially when you're supported by everything else in your life. So that's it. That's what's in my creative toolkit for 2026. These are simple things that are going to help sustain my creativity, and I hope some of these will be part of your toolkit too. The first week of December was about reflection. Last week was about direction, and this week is about support. Next week, we're going to be talking about what I'm leaving behind and what I'm carrying with me into 2026. And last but never least, I want to hear from you. So please tell me, what's one thing that you're going to add into your creative toolkit for 2026? What are the things that you're going to be leaning on to keep you creative? Thank you, as always, for being here, and I'll see you in the next video. And I also filmed a bonus video for this week. It's a really chaotic TBR jar video because I decided to make a TBR jar for my entire 2026 year, where I'm gonna take all the unread books I have on my shelves, from my Kindle, from my audiobook library, and add the ones that I want to read in 2026 into a jar. It was really fun to make, and I also realized I have a lot more books than I thought I did when I started filming that.